use the background image that have been given by the committee in the chat column, because in a few minutes, the opening ceremony will proceed in no time. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Professor Kartik Chandra Modal PhD from Department of Information Technology, Jadavpur University, India. The Honorable Professor Manjit Samuh PhD from Department of Applied Mathematics and Physics, Palestine Polytechnic University. The Honorable Dina Triutari SSI MSc from Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia. The Honorable, the Secretary of Department of Statistics, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Hasan Sidik Kurniawan, SSI MSc. The Honorable, all lecturer and staff of Statistics Department and SBRC team, Universitas Islam Indonesia, and also all the participants and of course all invited guests. First of all, let's pray our God Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful, the creator and the sustainer of the universe, and peace be upon Prophet Muhammad SAW, who has guided us into the right ways of life. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Diah Dwi Maharani. It is an awesome and precious chance for me to be your master of ceremony in this morning on Saturday, 19th of December 2020, in our big event, Statistics and Bioinformatics Research Center, Webinar Series 3 2020, from Department of Statistics, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, Universitas Islam Indonesia. But before starting our agenda, let me explain the agenda schedule of this event today. The first agenda is opening. The second agenda is reading the Al-Quran. The third agenda is sing the national anthem Indonesia Raya and Universitas Islam Indonesia hymn. The next agenda is opening speeches. The first speech will be delivered by Secretary of Department Statistik Universitas Islam Indonesia, Hasan Sidik Kurniawan, SSI MSc. The second speech will be delivered by Committee Chairman, Muhammad Muhajir, SSI MSc. The next agenda is supplication. The sixth agenda is webinar, Computational Biodiversity by Professor Kartik Chandra Modal, PhD. Next question answer session. The next break, and the next workshop, Introduction to Interactive Data Analysis with Ersaini by Dina Triutari, SSI MSc. The next is question and answer session, and then workshop with title Fitting Distribution with R with Manjit Samuh PhD. And then question and answer session, and the last is closing. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let's we open the ceremony by saying Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The next, there will be reciting the Al-Quran by student of Statistics Department, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Kamaluddin Simamura. To Kamal, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولله ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء قدير. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار. صدق الله العظيم. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Kamal. Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is Sing the National Anthem Indonesia Raya and Universitas Islam Indonesia Hymn. Well, to the all participants, please stand up. Thank you to all participants. Please sit down. Ladies and gentlemen, step in the following agenda are speeches. The first is welcoming speech from Secretary of Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Hasan Sidik Kurniawan SSI MSc. To Hasan Sidik Kurniawan SSI MSc, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Dia. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Shalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabbihi ajma'in. La haula wa la quwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Amma ba'du. Good morning to our honorable speaker, Professor Kartik Chandra Modal PhD, Professor Monjat Samuh PhD, and also Mrs. Dinatri Utari MSc, and also ladies and gentlemen wherever you are. Thank you very much to each and every one of you for being here today at this good moment, although it is still in pandemic period. I hope all of you are in a good health. Amin. My name is Muhammad Hasan Sidik Kurniawan, and it is such an honor for me to speak on behalf of the Department of Statistics Universitas Islam Indonesia. Let me begin by giving you a warm welcome to this SBRC webinar series number 3. Before we get started, I would like to express my appreciation to the Statistics and Bioinformatics Research Center, SBRC, who generously make this webinar come true. I would like to say thanks to Mrs. Rohmatul Fajriyah, Mr. Muhammad Muhajir, Mrs. Dinatri Utari, and all of the students who helped us in this very event. We couldn't have done it without you. In today's webinar, we would learn about the application of R in analyzing data. Also, we will learn about the computational of biodiversity. First, as far as I know, biodiversity is the variety and variability of life on Earth. Biodiversity is typically a measure of variation at the genetic, species, and also on ecosystem level. There are so many advantages of biodiversity in our world, such as advantages in improving our environment, becoming the part of our culture, and also as product of natural resources. We are living in very diverse environment. Therefore, there are also so many varieties of flora and fauna in our environment. Even among us, human, there is diversity, which should be managed. In the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Hujurat, chapter 49, verse 13, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala said, A'udhu billahi minasyaitonir rajim, Ya ayuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dzakari wa untha wa ja'alnakum syu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu inna akramakum 'indallahi atqakum innallaha 'alimun khabir. O humanity, indeed we created you from a male and a female and made you into peoples and tribes so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most right among you. Allah is truly all-knowing, all-aware. That first ensure that the diversity among us human and also non-human should be our motivation to know each other so we can get the advantages of it. And the most noble of us is the most righteous among us. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. I would like to say once more on behalf of the Department of Statistics Universitas Islam Indonesia, I said welcome. It is great to see so many of you here, although it is only via Zoom. And thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Hasan Sidik Kurniawan SSI MSc, for the speech. The second speech will be delivered by Committee Chairman Muhammad Muhajir SSI MSc. To Muhammad Muhajir SSI MSc, the time is yours.
Thank you very much for Master of Ceremony Dia Dwi Maharani. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Prof. Kartik Chandra Mondal, PhD, the Honorable Prof. Monjet Samuh, PhD, the Honorable Dina Triutari, SSI MSc, the Honorable Muhammad Hasan Siddiq Kurniawan, SSI MSc, as Secretary of Department Statistik, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, Universitas Islam Indonesia. I respect all of the participants who have attended here, especially to the committee organizer of the event Webinar Series 3 2020, which I am proud. First of all, let us say praise to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala who gives thousands of favors to us until this day. We can implement Webinar Series 3 2020 with festivals full of strong sense of community and set gratitude to Allah. As a lot of us are we worship a step from small servant. Salawat as well as greeting to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Many gave us a minimal model well and we should emulate. Alhamdulillah, today we have 3 big time webinar among others, computational biodiversity, introduction to interactive data analysis with Airsani, and fitting distribution with R. We, as the Committee Webinar Series 3 2020, says welcome to all participants where we have the opportunity to share information about development and application of the analytic method and theoretical, mathematical modeling and computational techniques to study biology, behavior, and social system. We know science and business is facing big change as a result of digital revolution at now. So skill in working with digital tools, especially programming and data in large number is skill addition to the primary to become an expert of bioinformatics. We know that bioinformatics is a subdiscipline of biology and computer science concerns with acquisition, storage, analysis, and dissemination of biological data, most often DNA and amino acid sequence. A lot of the benefit of statistical methods in biology, especially in research, statistical method used to get data from survey, observation, and experiment. Statistics Bioinformatics Research Center, or SBRC, is a research center in Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia, who have a role in combining the way information technology in health sector and biology research. SBRC also have the routine activities of training activities, workshop, commercial data analysis, and research with a partner. I hope in the future, SBRC be able to become research center, study and application of the statistics and bioinformatics who superior in Indonesia and the world. Before we conclude, I would like to express my appreciation to the SBRC team, our speakers, and Department of Statistics, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, Universitas Islam Indonesia, who generously helped us make this webinar come true. We could not have done it without you. So that I can pass on thanks to the participants that please present and apologize if we, as the committee organizers, especially for me, say sorry for there are still many deficiencies in the presentations of this event, the limitation of the facilities, and the administrative service. We on behalf of the committee always try to be professional because we realize there is no euphoria that is not correct. So my opening remark, I cover with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Muhammad Muhajir, SSE MSc, for the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, before we come to the main session, let us start by supplication first. I would like to invite Kamal to lead our supplication. To Kamal, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Let's pray together according to our respected religions. Allow me to lead prayer with Islam. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan syakirin, hamdan na'imin, hamdan yu'afi ni'amahu wa yukafihu mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li zalali wajhika wa azimi sultanik. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Ya Allah, on this day, we gather in carrying out the seminar SBRC, Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Give us blessing and smoothness for the event that we go through this. Ya Rabb, forgive our sins, the sins of our parents and our educators, and the sins of our nation's warriors who fell on the battlefield to exalt your title and defend your religion. Ya Rabb, make the knowledge we get to into useful knowledge. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adzaban nar. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antat tawwabur rahim wa tub alaina innaka antal azizul hakim bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamal. Well, before we start the webinar, to all participants, would you like to open the camera because we will take a picture together and the committee will shoot the screen up. So to all participants, please open your camera. I will count before we shoot the picture together. Okay. We can start. 3, 2, 1, smile. Once again. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we will start our session on SBRC Webinar Series 2020 by theme, Computational Biodiversity. Without any further ado, we would like to welcome Professor Kartik Chandra Modal, PhD from Department of Information Technology, Jadavpur University, India, as the speaker, and he will be assisted by Atina Ahdika, SSE MSc. To Atina Ahdika, SSE MSc, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much to the Master of Ceremony for the opportunity given to me to be the moderator of this first session. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we start our presentation today, I would like to ask you to mute your audio setting to avoid any disturbance during the presentation later. Okay, thank you. The Honorable Professor Kartik Chandra Modal, PhD, as the first speaker of this first session. The Honorable Muhammad Hasan Siddiq Kurniawan, SSE MSc, as the representative of the Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia. The Honorable Dr. Rahmatul Fajriyah, as the head of the Statistics and Bioinformatics Research Center, Universitas Islam Indonesia. the Honorable all the lecturers and staffs of the Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia, the Honorable, the distinguished guests, and all participants of this webinar series. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to this prestigious webinar series held by the Statistics and Bioinformatics Research Center, Universitas Islam Indonesia. In this occasion, we shall have outstanding presentation from our prominent speaker, Professor Dr. Kartik Chandra Mondal. And we will, I think we will have a very big insight and knowledge from the presentation of today. Okay, before we start the presentation, let me introduce myself. I'm Atina Ahdika from Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Today I will be the moderator of this first session, and I will deliver brief curriculum vitae from our prominent speaker first. May I share screen for the curriculum vitae? Okay, this is our presenter for the first session. He is Professor Kartik Chandra Mondal, PhD. He is an assistant professor at the Department of Information Technology at Jadavpur University, West Bengal, India. And this is the curriculum vitae of his. He attained his bachelor degree in 2006 at the Department of Information Technology at Jalpaiguri Government Engineering College, India. And then he attained his master degree at 2009 at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Kalyani, India. And then he attained his doctoral degree in July 2015 at the Department of Computer Science in University of Nice Sofia Antipolis, France, with his doctoral thesis about the algorithm for data mining and bioinformatics. This is his experience in teaching us assignment and then in project involvement, and in the speaker as the speaker, and he has published many books and paper in the reputable journals. Okay, before we start the presentation, I will deliver some rules for this session. First, all of the participants has to mute the audio setting of your computer, and then the question and answer session will be held after the presentation ends. Every participant can deliver the question via the chat box, and the moderator will choose the question to be answered by the presenter. Okay, without further ado, I would like to welcome our presenter, Dr. Kartik Chandra Mondal, who will deliver his presentation about the computational biodiversity. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Kartik Chandra Mondal, PhD. The floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for this detailed introduction of myself. Okay, so I'm going to share my presentation without spending more time. So I hope my presentation is visible and I'm clearly audible here. So because maybe I can switch up the camera here, which will help. Yeah. So my presentation for today is about computational biodiversity and the recent development in it. In this presentation, I will mainly give you some very brief introduction about different topics or different parts of the study and the recent development of it. Okay, myself, Dr. Karthik Chandra Mondal. I am an assistant professor of the Department of Information Technology, Yadavpur University. And no technical detail will be given in these presentations, although if you find this topic interesting, I will give you the necessary information and the resources available to study in this area. My talk will be mainly consist of these 5 points. Mainly the first points will be the biodiversity, where I will explain you regarding the different components of biodiversity like hotspot, classification, and why it is necessary with some case study. Then I will give you the explanation of why it is called computational biodiversity and what is the current scenario of this computational biodiversity in this domain. And then some of the initiatives taken by different government and global agencies of different countries, and what is the current status of development with language art, so that researcher can work in this domain and can have the opportunity to work in this domain. Okay, so first thing is, what is biodiversity? Before going to or give you the detailed definition of biodiversity, I must say that this thing started in the year of 1992 in the Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, with a convention of biological diversity, where a definition has been adopted for biodiversity, which says the variability among living organisms from all sources, including inter alia, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystem, and the ecological complexes of which they are a part. So in short, we can say the biodiversity is nothing but the variability and the variety of inter and within species from genus to ecosystem. Okay. So this is a very short explanation, a short definition of biodiversity you can consider to identify what is biodiversity. So it is actually the interspecies and within species and between species study of different genus, species, and ecosystem components. Before going into the detail, we first know why you need to conserve the biodiversity, because the knowledge of biodiversity will help us to use the natural resources in a sustainable manner, so that all the living and non-living things in this ecosystem can coexist together. Biodiversity boosts the ecosystem productivity also. So as I said, and also all these things, species can play an important role without hampering their own livelihood. But if you see the recent incidents in our Mother Earth, then you can find that the continuous loss of biodiversity is a really global issues of a current time. And so we must know why this biodiversity loss is happening, or what is the reason behind this biodiversity loss, which is a threat towards this mankind. And the main threat or the main reason behind this biodiversity loss is the pollution, or increase in the pollution level in earth, in different places like air, water, and the soil. In every place, the pollution level is increasing day by day, and this directly affects the climate change. Due to this climate change, sometimes the winter season comes earlier than the rainy season, or rainy seasons comes in a heavy way, so that everywhere is we can see that this flood is coming or visible very frequently in the different parts of the world. And due to this climate change, what happened, the species from one place try to move to another place where it finds suitable for its living. So in this way, what happened, the species of that particular place gets affected by the movement of other species which is belongs to the other part of the earth. Like for example, for the large population growth of human, we try to cut the forest and try to move ourselves towards the forest. In that way, the species present in forest gets affected directly or indirectly in different aspects, and uh, which actually creates a biodiversity loss in the region. Next one is deforestation and habitat loss. As I said, this is one reason of deforestation, but there are many other reasons. Many economical reasons are also present for these deforestations, and due to these deforestations, many loss of habitats actually can be seen, and that indirectly makes the reason behind this biodiversity loss. Also, whenever the nature is a great source of different resources. So and nature gives us to allow us to use those resources, but the human use those resources in a over exploited manner of those, and that over exploitation actually affects the biodiversity loss in the earth. Then, by creating the dams and by modifying the flow of waters on different parts of the river, creates the water shortage, or the sources of waters, limited sources of waters. So, and also this diversion or the controlling of the flow of water actually affects the species present inside the water bodies, or also the species present in the both side of the river or the water body, any kind of water bodies like lake, ponds, or the coastal area, all these water bodies. Due to this, we can see a huge amount of loss of biodiversity in the, I think we must move this one. Okay, so next one comes to this hotspot. What is this biodiversity hotspot? If you see, you can find some of those places where still the biodiversity, a great amount of biodiversity exists, but they are facing a great threat from different perspective, and we identify them and we call them as a hotspot or biodiversity hotspot. So this hotspot actually gives you is a native species and community associated with these ecosystems are very well represented during within this area, and there are total 36 biodiversity hotspots have been identified in this earth. And if you look at this map, then all these red spots are known as the biodiversity hotspot, and by using this map, you can find this 36 hotspot. A detailed list of hotspot can be found in the internet, but this is the geographical identification of those hotspots. If you look at the Indian part and the Indonesia part, then you can see this whole space is majorly colored with red. And if you look at the Indonesian map, then this map, almost whole of the Indonesian map is actually a great is full of red. That means full of biodiversity hotspot. So if you want to know about the number of hotspots in Indonesia, Then in India, it is number of hotspot is 4, and in Indonesia, the number of hotspot is 3. And the common hotspot between these two countries is Sundaland. Sundaland is a place before this water level rise. These places have a great amount of ecosystem, or the greenery and the living places, and we call, in a short or in a general way, we can call those places as a Sundaland. So the Nicobar Island, if you look at the map of Indian and Indonesian part, then you can see that Himalayan region is one of the hotspot. This Indo-Myanmar region is another hotspot. This Western Ghat of India is another hotspot, and the Nicobar Island, mainly from the Andaman and Nicobar Island, from the Nicobar side, this is the Sundaland, or the another hotspot from the Indian perspective. But from the Indonesian perspective, this Java and this mainland Indonesia consist of the Sundaland, and the remaining part is called Wallacea hotspot. So that's why the study of biodiversity in Indonesia or Indian subcontinent must be a great concern by the researchers to preserve those biodiversity and to coexist together with all the species in the present in this biodiversity area. So before going into the more detail about the computational biodiversity, we must know different classes of biodiversity. Okay, as per the United Nations Environment Program, okay, they have identified this biodiversity study in 3 different aspects. First one is the within species the biodiversity study, and that is actually it covers the study of individuals with the genetic variations within the particular species of a geographically separated single population. So it is within a particular population and within a particular species, and the study is of genetic level. So that's why this is called genetic diversity. Another one is called the species diversity, which covers the study of different species from microbes, virus, bacteria to animals and plants, with a full range of species on this earth. Okay, and that this study actually between the different species, their relationship between the species. So that's why it is called species diversity. Third one is called the ecosystem diversity, or that is the one of the important among these 3 biodiversity study. It deals with the interaction within and between the biotic and abiotic component of this biodiversity study. Okay, so it's also this study identifies the overall impact of human existence and in the other environmental component. So this is this previous classification is on based of the level of the components on the biodiversity places. But if you look at the place where we do the biodiversity study, based on that also classification can be made, and that is, one is aquatic biodiversity, that is the water level biodiversity that related to the water. So this water can be fresh water, can be the salt water. So when it is related to fresh water like pond, river, lake in the mainland, then this is called freshwater diversity. And when it is like the coastal area and the saltwater ecosystem we study, then that is called marine diversity. Each of these diversity itself has a more further classification, but I am not going into detail of all those things. The next one is the mainland diversity, or the terrestrial biodiversity, where this is divided again into 2 parts. One is the forest diversity, where the study of forest and its biodiversity loss has been considered, and the mountain diversity, where the study of different species present in different mountains has been considered. So these three, sometimes these three, the freshwater, forest, and mountain are closely related to each other. Like for example, if you talk about a particular forest, then you must have to consider the diverse, the species present in the river flowing through that forest, and the mountain which is present inside the forest. So we can, so all this diversity actually closely related to each other. Whenever we consider one diversity of for a particular study, we must have to consider the other diversity or the other area of the diversity, like the forest or mountain, together with the freshwater or marine water. There is another type of classification based on the measuring parameters, whatever we use for this biodiversity classification or the biodiversity study. And that the first one is alpha diversity, which is actually also known as the species richness. And as per the name, species richness, you can understand that this study or this type of diversity identifies the number of species of a single community at a particular time, or it compares the number of species between different community. Like for example, in this particular image, you can see that this compares the different number of species between two communities at a particular time. So here the time is like this study is with respect to time. This alpha diversity can be considered as a study with respect to time. Next one is beta diversity, where you can see from this figure that this is a mountain slope, and all these different structures are different. I can be considered as different species, and this is another mountain slope where the same species can be distributed throughout the mountain slope. So the beta diversity measures the degree of change in species composition, okay, along with the geographical location. Okay, so or the spatial distribution, not the geographical location, but the spatial distribution. Okay, so low beta value means the same species occupy the whole slope, like here, same species occupy the whole slope of the mountain. So in that case, the diversity is very low. So we call this low beta diversity. Similarly, in case of high beta diversity, where it signifies the species composition of a mountain slope is very high. Okay, so and as I said in the last case, it is with respect to time, but here it is a spatial domain. Okay, the next one is gamma diversity, where the time and space both considered to measure the changes. So that's why it is called rate of changes of species with a habitat type for in a different location or different area of a large geographic area. So from this figure, it can be clear to understand the concept of gamma diversity, that here the location one, you have different composition of or the rate different compositions of species. In this area two, you have different compositions of species. So if you want to understand the composition, the rate of changes of the species from one location to another location, then you need to study the gamma diversity of that particular geographic area. Next, about the necessity, and as I said, the necessity here I will explain you with respect to the case study. Two case study from India, and I will help you to understand the problem, and then I will show you the same situation in Indonesia, how the same problem is exist in Indonesian part. Say for example, if we consider the river Ganga, which is a very important and popular river in India, which flows from a large part of the country, and a large number of population resides in the both side of the river, and also depends heavily on the river's ecosystem. But still, the human we destroy the river ecosystem in different ways, and that directly affects us and the different species present in the river water. Like for example, fish species or any other bacterial or other species present in the water is in an extinction age, and we must think about restoring the ecosystem of river Ganga. So for that, we need to study the data coming from these different places of this river, and we must analyze that how or we must predict what is going to happen in the next in the current future, so that we can protect in an early stage. Okay. The next thing or next case study is on a forest in Odisha. Odisha is a state in India where a large portion of the state is covered with greenery, and it can be seen from the past few years study that the greenery of this state is slowly losing or decreasing due to different reasons, or of human that reasons belongs to, means that reason may be created by the humans or the natural calamities also. So there is a loss of greenery in that particular forest. So we must, and that also indirectly or directly affecting the species living inside the forest or surrounding the forest. So we must consider to preserve the ecosystem of that forest. Similarly, in case of Indonesia, Siliwing River is a very important river which also flows like for a large part of the mainland Indonesia, is flowing through almost 150 kilometers, and these two are the beautiful pictures of this river. Okay, and you can see and these two pictures are the the past pictures of this river. But if you see the current images of this river, see here, or maybe this one, or maybe this one, or the participants from Indonesia can understand this this painful situation of this river. And if you can see from these images that is it possible to exist any species inside this river with this condition? And the answer is no. So we must restore the condition of this river or any other river, and this and the population of Indonesia, large population of Indonesia depends heavily on this river. So we must preserve the ecosystem of this river. Next one, if you look at the recent news threads from Indonesia, so this is just, this information has been collected yesterday. So you can see this 4 weeks ago, this means just 1 month ago, these news threads have been come into the internet, that Indonesian forests are in a danger state due to different reasons, and that reason may be one of the such reason is developing the roads, okay, or mining this forest area, or due to this volcanic eruption. So there are several reasons which are affecting the forest and mountain, which is a large part of this Indonesia, actually affecting due to this activity. Okay, so we must try to understand and try to have a great look into these causes, and we must protect this ecosystems, maybe that is from water or forest or the mountain. Okay, so to have a great look on those or to understand them in a better way, or in a closed loop, we need to use the computational approaches. Computational approaches in biodiversity data is actually called computational biodiversity, like the computational bioinformatics. Maybe some of you know what is computational bioinformatics. So in the similar way, if we apply the computational methods in biodiversity data, then we can call that area as a computational biodiversity. Okay, this is a very new term with respect to the computational bioinformatics, you can relate this term with the genetic diversity only. But except this genetic diversity, there are two more diversity present: the species diversity and ecosystem diversity. And ecosystem diversity is one of the major concern for us. And the genetic diversity can be controlled or can be studied by using the computational bioinformatics. So this computational biodiversity mainly is a part of ecosystem diversity and the species diversity, where we use to generate accurate and reliable prediction and to explore the relationship between the different factors which are affecting the environment and species distribution present in the different biodiversity area. Okay. Also, this computational biodiversity help us to predict models for species distribution, spatial and temporal domain. As I given you some example for the spatial and temporal explanation of different measures. This computational approaches, if we consider and if we classify, then these computational models can be divided into two types. One is mathematical model and the computational model. Mathematical model, mainly the statistical model we understand, but in case of biodiversity study, some statistical indices or index have been generated specifically for biodiversity study, and we call those index as biodiversity indices, and we separate them with the classical statistical methods. One of such index can be Simpson index, which is greatly used for biodiversity study. Okay. Another model, type of model is computational model, where data mining, machine learning, AI, deep learning are used to understand the biodiversity data and to generate information and to take some action to protect the biodiversity, for protecting the biodiversity conservation. Okay. And these are some of the detailed application of data mining and machine learning. Mainly me and our group working on by using this data mining and machine learning techniques for biodiversity data. If you talk about the specific application, then we consider the Sundarban area of the Sundarban area of India, or the West Bengal and Bangladesh region for our study. And we use from the data mining domain, we use classification, clustering, and association rule mining basically to study the data from those part. And what kind of application or what kind of task you can solve by using these things, in using these approaches, is you can predict which species will fall into endangered species category, endangered category in near future, so that before it is too late, you can take some action to protect them. Or maybe automated discovery of some unknown pattern from the data set which is yet not known by the community or the researcher, so that it can so that you can give a detailed look on those patterns to protect the mother earth. Next one is finding the relationship between the climate change and biodiversity loss. As I said, the pollution is the main reason behind this biodiversity loss, and due to this pollution, the climate change happen, and there is all the reasons are interrelated with each other and closely related with each other, and they have the great effect on biodiversity loss. So to find a particular reason behind or particular relation between between any of those factors with the biodiversity loss, then we can use this correlation analysis for understanding this concept. Also, analyzing the effect of river water pollution, like water pollution or flow of water. If we whenever we change the flow of water, or whenever the pollution is increased or decreased, then how the species distribution increases or decreases. due to this, by using this kind of study, we can analyze or we can identify the major effects of a particular or major effects of a particular species, or analyze the other aspect of the water, other aspect of conserving the biodiversity in water. There is some statistical techniques from this last slide, and by comparing this one, you may understand that the statistical techniques are very less on this biodiversity study. But statistical techniques can be used to monitor the biodiversity and assess the quality of the biodiversity, and also finding the rate of change of different factors present in biodiversity. Now, these are different data sets used by different studies. These are very recent study have been done in different by using different computational approaches, okay, for study of biodiversity data. Now, if you look at the of this graph, which is created in last year September 2019 from the Google Scholar dataset, then you can see that the statistical approaches have been used in biodiversity study almost 50% of time. So 50% of this biodiversity study uses the statistical approaches to understand the facts, understand the data. From the remaining 50%, 25% study have been done by using data mining, and other AI, machine learning, and deep learning approaches are are used for this remaining 25% of study. So statistics has a great impact on this biodiversity study. Now, if you look at the particular application or particular use cases on those research, then you can see the species distribution or the species diversity analysis are the great concern for the researcher who are working in this domain. And there is other like species presence, absence, species classification, effect of environmental factors on different species or different components of biodiversity. These are also effect of human intervention. These are the next major concern for the researcher who are working in this domain for study of biodiversity data, or to find the hidden information from the biodiversity data. Now, whenever every time I'm talking about this biodiversity data, then if you try to understand the biodiversity data, then you will face these four problems, because the biodiversity data have these four characteristics. They are very incremental and voluminous. What are these things mean in case of biodiversity data concern? Heterogeneous means, in case of biodiversity, different research groups works on the same particular, say for example, if you consider a river Ganga, then different researchers are working in this river Ganga, and each of these research community generates their own data, and each of those data are very different in nature from each other. So to combine them, so the nature, so if you look at the formats, how they are stored, those data, then you can find these data are very heterogeneous. So this is another challenge for the research community who want to work or who are working in this domain, that combining all these data from different generated by the different research group and put them in a common platform can be a great research scope by the research community. Another one is actually complex. Why it is complex? Because as I said earlier, that whenever you talk about research for a river biodiversity, you have to consider about forest, you have to consider about air, you have to consider about mountain. So, and all of these data have their own own properties, own attributes, values, and also they have the national and geographical, national and global perspective of those data. So due to this reason, the data present in this domain is very complex. collecting a particular data for a particular application, you have to consider different sources. You have to integrate them, and then you have to apply your computational methods for your study. So that is another challenge by the researcher, that which data or which source is reliable, or which source unit is considered for a particular study. That is another research scope for or can be a research issue by the research community. Next is incremental. What is the meaning of this incremental in this case? All this data in this biodiversity domain are are generated in a time frame, in a particular time frame. So in each time frame you have different data. So as the time passes, you have more data collected from the location, biodiversity locations. So this creates a huge amount of data day by day, and the quality of the data is, or the quantity of the data is more complex and heterogeneous. So due to this large amount of data, nature of the data, we can also consider this biodiversity data as the big data, and we can apply big data concepts or big data study on biodiversity data, and that can be another major challenge or the issues by the researchers of working in this domain. So in each of these characteristics, based on each of these characteristics, researchers have their own challenges to work on this domain. There are some international or global initiatives have been taken to store those data or the information collected from different studies, and few of them are GBI, Global Forest Biodiversity Initiative, where you can find the forest inventory data. GBI, Global Biodiversity Information Facility, a very major or important portal for biodiversity data. There are also BioGeomancer, where you can find the biodiversity data in a geospatial location, different geospatial location, or IDIC-Bio, the integrated bio collection in a digitized manner, or the fish base, where you can find the fish species database in a globalized database for which belongs to different fish species. Except these global initiatives, here you can find some of the initiatives by Indian and Indonesian government, or the different projects worked on Indonesia and Indian continent. These four portals or the repositories from India, like Environment and Information System, ENVIS, Indian Biodiversity Portal, or Indian Biodiversity Information System, are the great source of data from Indian biodiversity. And SSBIN, INABIF, or IndoBioSys are some of those biodiversity portals and repositories from where you can collect data which can be used for biodiversity study, or to understand the biodiversity loss of Indonesia and India. The next is development with R. Now, first thing is come to your mind, why I have considered only R. The reason is, if you have seen the recent study, the graph I have shown you, the recent advancement on the computational approaches, then you can see that statistical approaches have been used 50% of the biodiversity study. So, and statistical approaches or the statistical problem can be solved in a better way by using language R, because R is a statistical language. So that's why R is more famous for working on biodiversity. And there are some packages have been developed for statistical analysis on biodiversity data, like Biodiversity R is one of the famous package for biodiversity study. BioFTF, BioR, EDIG, or for visualizing the biodiversity data, BDVs or RV lab. These are some of the packages which you can use for statistical analysis on biodiversity data. And as I said, that statistics have a great impact on biodiversity analysis. So that, and R is a statistical software, so you can have a better you can have a better experiment on biodiversity data by using R. But except this, you can use any statistical tool or machine learning or data mining tool developed in any other languages for study on biodiversity. Now, if you talk about Python, another popular language popular language nowadays, which is used by different communities for different data mining or machine learning or statistical study. But I will say that the Python is not that much popular for biodiversity study, but there are some packages are still available. By using those, you can study the biodiversity data, and there is a great scope to use Python language for language and development of using Python language for biodiversity study. So in conclusion, I must say that this computational biodiversity is a very new topic, and has I have shown you different case studies, one from river and another from forest, but they have great impact on other areas, which will help the researcher to work in this domain to identify the major research working areas of this biodiversity. I have also given some of the very brief overview or the name of these computational approaches which are used for biodiversity study, but there are other approaches are also available which you can use for biodiversity study and can be the motivation for the researcher to work in this domain. I have shown you some of the initiative taken by different government or international agencies for storing biodiversity information or data generated from different locations, which can help the researcher who is working or who want to work in this domain for this biodiversity conservation. So that's all from my part. Now I hand over to the moderator if any particular question is there.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kartik, for the nice presentation. I think it's very great insight and knowledge about the biodiversity. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the question and answer session. I will read the question from our participant, and Dr. Kartik will answer the question which I will read. Okay, the first question is from Bharti Mittal from Bangalore, India. The question is, can we get the list of tools which are used for the biodiversity analysis? Okay, please, Dr. Kartik.
And I hope by this time the answer is clear that what are the tools specifically belongs to this R for biodiversity analysis. Among those, if I name some of those, like biodiversity R is a very popular tool which is used for statistical analysis on biodiversity data. But as I said, you can use any kind, if you are from machine learning or data mining domain, if you use data mining approaches or machine learning approaches, then any machine learning and data mining tool can be used, but you have to use specific indices which belongs to this biodiversity domain for analyzing or for understanding or for to identify the quality of those results. That's all. Because if you talk about the bioinformatics, then there are some specific indices are there. Similarly, in case of biodiversity, you have different indices are there. You have to use or apply those indices along with the conventional machine learning or data mining approach. and any tool can be used from those domains.
So we can get the package easily, yeah?
Yeah, and R is also freely available, so you have the open access facility.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kartik. The second question is from Ibu Hasih Pratiwi from Universitas Negeri 11 Maret. Okay, the question is, if we want to know relation between climate change and biodiversity loss, what variables that should be considered? Okay, please, Dr. Kartik.
Yeah, this is like a detailed, I have to give you some detailed information about this. And the climate change and biodiversity loss, like, for example, before understanding the climate change, you have to know the pollution. So if you include the pollution data in a time in a time frame, pollution, different diversity, species or the count by species, then you can find. But as I said, and if you have seen my data or my CV, then you can see that my main study is bioinformatics earlier, but recently, means 3 years, I'm working on this biodiversity domain, and I have not used many applications from many data, but mainly, as I said in my talk, that I am working currently on a project, on a Government of India project, where we are concentrating on to understand the mangrove of Sundarban forest. But there are, I have seen many good research paper where they have concentrated on climate change and biodiversity loss, relationship between these two, and you can look at those research articles to have a great detailed knowledge of those. But for me, I have not studied in this in particular for this application.
So I guess it can
Thank
be
you.
a good. Okay, Ibu Hasih. So I think it can be a good research topic maybe to be collaborate with Ibu Hasih.
Dr. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Ibu. Okay, the next question is from Amalia Rahmadana. The question is there any data repositories about the biodiversity on the web? Okay, please, Dr.
Let me share my screen again. And hope my screen is visible. And if you particularly interested on Indonesian data, then there is this SSBIN or Indobiosis. From this repository, these three repository, you can find a great amount of Indonesian data. Also, there is some other database like GBI is a global portal from where also you can find Indonesian data. And all these data, most of those data, not all, but most of these data are freely available and accessible by anybody, and you can use them for your research.
So the most of the data is free.
Most of the data is accessible, freely accessible.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Kartik. The next question is from Raden Ayu Nurul Faizah. The question is, what is the basic knowledge should we learn to do biodiversity analysis? Okay, please, Dr. Kartik.
Sorry?
What is the basic knowledge should we learn to
basic
do
knowledge
biodiversity?
should we learn to do biodiversity analysis? Okay. In this case, if you consider my scenario, like I was working on bioinformatics and I shifted to biodiversity, and the challenges I faced is understanding the terminology. That is a very difficult situation if you move your research to this domain. But it is not that much difficult that you will not understand. But since it is related to environment, if you relate those terms with the environmental context, then it will be easier to understand or easier to remember for your study. So for me, I will say that if you are working on particular domain, not in biodiversity, then the challenges you may face to understand the terminology which belongs to this domain. Except this, others like the approaches or the concept of research in the biodiversity is exactly same like the other. So there is no such difficulty except the terms.
Yeah. So we have to just read many paper about what we were.
One solution is just to habituate with the term and understand those terms, and that problem will be solved.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kartik. And then the next question is from Kamaluddin Simamura. The question is, what computer specification to do biodiversity analysis?
It depends on the data, like how much data you are considering for your research. If the data is big, then you may need a high performance computer. Else, all the researches I am doing or my group is doing is general purpose system. So no need of very specific high performance computer is not needed in this case. But even if you need to handle a large amount of data, you may need a large processing power. But for general purpose study or the research, you don't need any high computing resources. And the general computing resources are good enough for any kind of biodiversity study.
Yeah, so it's up to your data.
Yeah, up to your requirement, like requirement of the data, how big your data is, because you need to handle those data, and for that you need the processing power. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We still have 10 minutes. Any other question maybe from the participant? No, not yet. Okay, then I will. I have one question for you, Dr. Kartik. Can you give us one example of your research about this biodiversity?
I can show you maybe if you want, like just an example of what kind of output we generate by using data. As I said, we are using data mining and machine learning based approaches, and basically the classification and clustering and rule mining. So I can show you some data, some of those data from our research. So just let me open the. Yeah, this is one of our published paper. Okay, so where you can find, we have tried to analyze the Indian estuarine data for flora and fauna, the presence absence of flora and fauna of Indian estuarine data sets. So this data has been collected from the Biodiversity Board of West Bengal, the state from where we belong. And this Dr. Anirban Roy is the director of that board, who has given us the data set, the raw data we have used here. So this is the presence absence data set. If I make it large, and you can see it, this one. I think this is visible. This is visible, I think.
Yeah, it is clear.
So if you see that these are the different flora and fauna here, and these are the different estuarine, like 20 estuarines present in India throughout the coastal region of India, and number of species of that particular flora and fauna, how many species are present. So from this data, what we have done here is we have pre-processed the data to make it a binary format or in a categorical format, and the categories we have here, this high or very low, high, depending on some value we have collected from that particular from that person who actually guided us for this threshold value and for the discretization. Okay, and we have used this data set. I think my voice is okay. It's clearly audible.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I should stop my video. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I am maybe the bandwidth issue is there. So after this discretization, what we have so we have used this categorical attribute or attribute value data set, and we have used another one is whether this is present or not. So this is also an important information to analyze the biodiversity data, whether instead of having a particular particular count that how much a particular species is present or not. So we have used both of these data set, this categorical data and this binary data, and then this is the distribution of the of those species. Okay, and what we have used here, the approaches in this. I'm not going into the detail of this approach. Now, if you look at the result set, okay, then we can find this kind of rules, or this kind of frequent set from the data set, that arthropoda is a very high. We can find arthropoda and classic species, both of these species in a very high amount in this particular estuarine. And if you analyze the characteristics of this estuarine, then we can easily identify what is the reason behind the presence of these two species in a very high amount. Also, there are other ways of we have applied the dataset in different ways, like in a row column manner or column row manner, and we have found, say for example, this one, that these two, this E5 and E10, are present in a most of these in all of these estuarines. Okay, and if you find the differences among these, then you can say, for example, E5 is present in estuarine 1 only, except the common estuarine, and E10 is absent on, E5 is present on 1, 4, 1, 5 and 7. Okay, so if we analyze the characteristics of 1, 5 and 7 which are missing in this list, so we can understand why E5 is present here and not present in this. So if E5 is very important species, we can artificially or we can artificially impose those characteristics on the water of those region, or we can if those characteristics are still present but due to some pollution or due to some other reason those are absent, we can preserve those characteristics again on those areas, so that E5 species can be present. So the studies like this way we have done. Some of the examples I have shown you here in this manner. And these the statistical measure, this support and confidence we have used. We have not used any specific indexes for biodiversity study in this particular case, but our future study are using different biodiversity study, like in the last index and other. Those have been used for biodiversity study and to understand them in a better way, all these results. And that's all. So if you have any further query.
Yeah, I think the participant want to get the link of the paper.
Okay. I will give you here. This is published in a very recent conference, so it is yet not available online, but it is in a Springer conference. But I can give you here maybe with this during this webinar session. I can send you the paper in the chat box.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kartik. Okay, I will read the last two questions because we almost end the session today. Okay, the question for the next one is from Alvarisi. What is the pipeline to do biodiversity analysis for undergraduate final project?
Okay, pipeline means, what do you mean by this pipeline here? In this case, UG project. Can you
okay, Alvarisi, maybe you can get the detail of what you mean by pipeline.
Means pipeline in this case, what as per the UG final year project, what is the pipeline meaning of this pipeline here? If you are talking about the approaches and all these things, step by step, yeah, as I try to understand, is a step by step of the approaches, like the classical. If you try to understand, try to do any kind of data analysis for any data, then the steps like understanding the data, pre-processing the data, and then applying the approaches. These three steps basically you have to take. And for understanding the data, as I said, if you are not from the biodiversity domain, there will be a little bit of difficulty. But for data pre-processing, those are as you can see from my study, I have used just classical discretization approach. So this is there will be no difficulties for data pre-processing. And for example, for any particular approach, after the discretization, when you have the data, to understand the data, you can use any data mining or machine learning approach. These three basic or the overall steps you need to follow. And for machine learning, it has its own step. For data processing, it has its own steps. So you just have to follow them.
Yeah. Is it okay? Alvarisi? Okay, then I think it's the last question for this session from Venkat Raman. As current academic bioinformatician from Malaysia, can you say how an international integrated biodiversity study helps both bioinformatics and biodiversity field?
Okay, if you are a bioinformatician, and if you are doing your research on that genetic diversity, then it directly have an effect on biodiversity. Okay, like as I said that if I have understood as the current academic bioinformatician from Malaysia, can you say how an international integrated biodiversity study? Of course, any kind of biodiversity study, maybe that is international or local or national, if you do that genetic diversity study, then it will have a direct help or effect on biodiversity. So in that way, if by doing the genetic biodiversity, you can combine both bioinformatics and biodiversity together.
Okay. Okay, I think the time is up. So thank you very much once again, Dr. Kartik, for your nice and informative presentation. Before we end the presentation today, I will represent the Department of Statistics to deliver the certificate for you, Dr. Kartik. Maybe I will share the certificate first. Okay, Dr. Kartik, this is the certificate of appreciation from the Department of Statistics, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Thank you very much for your time to present your nice and very informative presentation about the computational biodiversity. I think the participant can read the detail of your research from your Google Scholar or Scopus profile. And I think it's enough from me. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Kartik. And I will end the presentation and my GT today. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will give the time to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you, Athina Adika, SSE, MSE. And thank you, Prof. Kartik Chandra Mondal, PhD, for sharing with us. It's such a great opportunity and our pleasure to have you with us. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I must appreciate the question and answer session. There is a good question and questions asked by the participants. So, and hope my presentation will help them to motivate to work in this domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Ladies and gentlemen, before we will take a break about 30 minutes, I would like to remind that the certificate for the participant from the first webinar session, you will get after you fill the list of attendance in the Google Form. You can get the link of Google Form in the chat box. The committee have been given in the chat box. Thank you. Okay, before we continue to the next agenda, which is workshop by theme Introduction to Interactive Data Analysis with Ershayni by Dina Tri Utari SSE MSE, we will take a break first. And well, we will see you in 30 minutes later. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.